The briefing room fell silent when Commandant Vexthal announced the assignment. Every cadet in the chamber turned to stare at Doyen Kim, who sat in the back row with his boots propped on the desk in front of him. The young human didn't move. He just kept cleaning his fingernails with a small knife, that strange grin playing at the corners of his mouth. Cadet Kim will undertake the Velcran trial, the Commandant repeated, his reptilian eyes gleaming with something that looked like satisfaction. He will hunt a Ripper beast on Kargoth Prime, alone. Instructor Heejin Park shot to her feet. Commandant, that's a death sentence. The Velcran trial is designed for Thraxian warriors and Gorvath hunters, species with armor plating and redundant organs. Humans are fragile compared to them. Vexthal's scales rippled in what passed for a smile among his kind. Then perhaps humanity should reconsider its place in the Galactic Military Academy. We cannot lower our standards simply because your species bruises easily. Doyen finally looked up. His dark eyes met the Commandant's without flinching. Around the room, alien cadets whispered among themselves. The humans looked pale. Everyone knew what this was. 20 years since first contact, and humanity still fought for basic respect among the stars. This wasn't a trial. This was a message. I accept, Doyen said. His voice carried clearly through the silent room. Doyen, don't be stupid, hissed Minji Choi from 2 rows ahead. She was the top human cadet, brilliant in strategy and combat both. No one expects you to commit suicide for pride. I'm not committing suicide, Doyen replied, still grinning. I'm going hunting. The briefing continued with the standard protocols. Kargoth Prime was classified as a death world. Gravity 1.7 times Earth standard. Atmosphere breathable but toxic in high concentrations. The Ripper beast was the apex predator, 4 meters tall with regenerative capabilities that let it heal from wounds that would kill most creatures. It hunted by thermal signature and had armored hide that could deflect energy weapons. Historical data showed a 23% survival rate for the trial. But that was for warrior species. No human had ever attempted it. No human had ever been stupid enough to try. After the briefing, Instructor Heejin Park caught Doyen in the hallway. She was a veteran of the contact wars, one of the first humans to serve alongside alien soldiers. Her face was lined with scars and experience. You don't have to do this, she said quietly. I can file a formal protest. Get Earth Command involved. And prove them right? Doyen shook his head. That humans need special treatment? That we can't handle what other species consider normal? There's a difference between proving yourself and throwing your life away. Is there? Doyen's grin faded slightly. Instructor, I've read every report on the Velcran trial. I know what I'm up against. But I also know something that the Commandant doesn't. What's that? Humans don't fight fair. We never have. That's why we're still alive. Heejin studied him for a long moment. Then she nodded slowly. What do you need? Access to the equipment requisition system. And no questions about what I order. The next day, Doyen spent 6 hours in the Academy archives. He pulled up every recording of previous Velcran trials. He watched Thraxian warriors charge the Ripper head-on, using their natural armor to absorb hits while they struck at vulnerable points. He watched Gorvath hunters use pack tactics, surrounding the beast and wearing it down. He watched cadets die because they thought strength and courage were enough. Instructor Taiyang Seo found him there after midnight, still watching footage on a holographic display. You should sleep, the instructor said. You deploy in 36 hours. Sleep is for people who aren't about to fight a regenerating 4-meter monster, Doyen replied. Did you know the Ripper has better night vision than day vision? And its hearing is directional, focused forward. It has a blind spot on its left rear quarter. Taiyang pulled up a chair. He was younger than Heejin, a former pilot who had survived 3 crashes and still walked with a slight limp. You're looking for weaknesses. Everything has weaknesses. The trick is finding them before they find yours. Doyen rewound a section of footage. Look there. See how it favors its right side when turning? There's an old injury on the left leg. Healed, but the scar tissue affects its mobility. That Ripper died 2 years ago. But the one on Kargoth Prime is from the same breeding population. Same genetics, same vulnerabilities. Doyen finally looked away from the screen. Instructor, when a Thraxian fights a Ripper, what does the Ripper expect? A direct confrontation. Strength versus strength. Right. And when a Gorvath hunts it? Pack tactics. Coordinated attacks from multiple angles. So what happens when a human shows up? Doyen's grin returned. What does it expect from a species it's never encountered? Taiyang considered this. Nothing. It has no reference point, exactly. That's my advantage. Not strength. Not numbers, unpredictability. The requisition list that Doyen submitted made the supply officer stare at her screen for a full minute. Standard combat suit and energy blade, yes. Emergency beacon required by regulations. But also 50 meters of climbing rope, chemical flares, medical adhesive, waterproof bags, and a harmonica. A harmonica? The officer asked. For morale, Doyen replied cheerfully. You're going to die playing music for a monster? Maybe, but at least I'll die entertained. Word spread through the academy like wildfire. The crazy human was actually going through with it. Betting pools opened among the alien cadets. Most gave him less than 12 hours. A few generous souls thought he might survive a full day before the Ripper found him. The human cadets were quieter. They gathered in small groups talking in low voices. Some prayed to gods they hadn't thought about in years. Others got angry, demanding that Earth Command intervene. But everyone knew the truth. If Doyen backed out now, it would confirm every prejudice the Galactic Council held about humanity. That they were weak. That they didn't belong among the stars. That first contact had been a mistake. The night before deployment, Minji found Doyen on the observation deck. He was looking out at the stars, the harmonica in his hands. You really think you can do this? She asked. Honestly, I have no idea. He turned the instrument over in his fingers. But I know what happens if I don't try. Every human who comes after me will have to fight twice as hard to be taken half as seriously. That's not your responsibility. Maybe not. But it's my choice. He raised the harmonica and played a few notes. The melody was old from Earth, something about being a long way from home. You know what's funny? The Commandant thinks he's punishing me, but I volunteered for the Academy because I was bored. Earth is safe now. No wars, no frontiers left to explore, just comfortable. And this isn't? This is terrifying, but at least it's interesting. He lowered the harmonica. Minji, if I don't come back, tell my parents something for me. Don't talk like that. Tell them I died doing exactly what I wanted. Living right up to the edge. He grinned again, that infuriating expression that made people either love him or want to hit him, and tell them I went out laughing. The deployment was scheduled for dawn. Doyen stood in the launch bay, surrounded by technicians who checked his equipment with nervous efficiency. The combat suit was standard issue, designed to regulate temperature and protect against environmental hazards. It wouldn't stop the Ripper's claws, but it might keep him alive long enough to regret his choices. Instructor Hyejin handed him a small data chip. Topographical maps. Updated 3 days ago. And Doyen, come back. Don't make me file the paperwork for a dead cadet. I'll do my best. He pocketed the chip. See you in 3 days. Save some cake for me. As the transport lifted off, carrying him toward Kargoth Prime and whatever waited there, Doyen looked back at the academy. Hundreds of faces watched from the observation windows. Human and alien, instructor and cadet all wondering the same thing. Would he return? And if he did, what would be left of him? Doyen leaned back in his seat and closed his eyes. In his mind, he ran through the plan again. 27 different contingencies, 27 ways things could go wrong, and 27 ways to adapt. He'd memorized every detail of the terrain, every behavior pattern of the Ripper, every weakness he could exploit. It still probably wasn't enough, but it would have to be. The transport broke atmosphere, and Kargoth Prime filled the viewport. Red and green and hostile, a world that didn't care about politics or pride or the struggles of species trying to find their place in the galaxy. A world that only cared about one thing, survival. Doyen smiled and started playing his harmonica. The drop pod hit atmosphere like a meteor. Inside, Doyen gripped the restraints as the whole capsule shook and screamed. Through the viewport, he watched Kargoth Prime rush up to meet him. The crimson jungle spread below like an infected wound, red vegetation covering every surface. Steam rose from volcanic vents. Rivers ran thick with mineral deposits that glowed faintly in the morning light. The pod's retro thrusters fired. His stomach lurched. Then impact, hard enough to rattle his teeth even with the shock absorbers. The door blew open with a hiss of hydraulics and the smell hit him first. Rotting vegetation mixed with sulfur and something else, something organic and wrong. The air was thick, each breath coating his lungs with moisture. Doyen stepped out onto alien soil. The gravity pulled at him immediately. 1.7 times Earth standard meant every movement took more effort. His combat suit compensated somewhat, but he could feel it in his knees, his back, his shoulders. Everything was heavier here, including him. He had 3 days, 72 hours to hunt the Ripper beast and reach the extraction point or die trying. Day 1. Hour 0. Beginning trial. He tapped the recording device on his suit collar. Academy regulations required constant documentation. Every cadet's trial was recorded for analysis. Usually those recordings ended badly. Temperature is 32 degrees. Humidity at 80%. Gravity sucks. Otherwise lovely weather. The jungle was loud, not with birds or insects like Earth, but with sounds he couldn't identify. Clicks and hisses and wet sliding noises. The trees weren't really trees, but something fungal. Their trunks covered in breathing pores that opened and closed. The ground squelched under his boots. Doyen pulled out the topographical map that Instructor Heejin had given him. He'd memorized it during the flight, but seeing the real thing was different. The terrain was more broken than the scans suggested. Ravines cut through the jungle like scars. Volcanic outcroppings jutted up at odd angles. He was in the heart of Ripper territory. Somewhere within 5 kilometers, the beast was waiting. It had lived here for 7 years, killing everything that challenged it. Previous cadets had landed and immediately begun tracking their prey, following broken vegetation and claw marks. They thought they were hunters. They were wrong. On Kargoth Prime, everything was prey until proven otherwise. Doyen checked his equipment one more time. Energy blade secured to his hip. Rope coiled on his back. Chemical flares in the utility pouches. Medical adhesive, waterproof bags, and the harmonica tucked in his chest pocket. He'd packed light because he knew he'd be running. The first rule of surviving a predator was simple. Don't be where it expected you to be. He moved east, away from the drop pod. His boots left tracks in the soft ground, so he took his time, using fallen fungal logs to step across mud. When he couldn't avoid leaving prints, he deliberately stepped in his own tracks, making his trail loop back on itself. Old hunter's trick from Earth. Make the tracker confused about which direction you went. 2 hours in, he found what he was looking for. A clearing where the jungle opened up around a hot spring. Mineral deposits crusted the edges and steam rose in thick clouds. Doyen set up his first false camp here, arranging his emergency beacon on a rock where it would be visible. He scattered some ration wrappers around, made it look like someone had stopped to rest. Then he moved on. The second false camp went into a hollow between 3 large fungal trunks. He left his spare water container there, along with more ration wrappers. The third camp he placed on a ridge overlooking a ravine. He arranged chemical flares in a circle, unactivated but visible to anything with decent eyesight. 3 camps, 3 potential targets. The Ripper would find them eventually. And when it did, Doyen would be watching. He climbed a fungal tree on the far side of the ravine, using his rope to secure himself 40 meters up. The view was good from here. He could see 2 of his false camps and most of the approaches. The thick canopy hid him from above, and the breathing pores on the tree trunk masked his thermal signature to some degree. Now he waited. Back at the academy, in the observation center, instructors and cadets gathered around the holographic display. Doyen's vital signs showed green. His location marker blinked steadily on the map. The video feed from his suit camera showed nothing but leaves and steam. "He's hiding," said one of the alien cadets, a Thraxian named Vec. "This is cowardice. This is smart," Minji said quietly. She'd been watching for 6 hours straight, refusing to leave. "He's not trying to fight yet. He's gathering information. Information won't stop a Ripper's claws, but it might tell him where to dodge." Instructor Taiyang stood with his arms crossed, studying the map. He's built a perimeter. 3 false positions forming a triangle. When the Ripper investigates, he'll observe its patterns. "If he lives long enough," muttered another cadet. On screen, nothing moved. Hours passed. Doyen stayed in his tree, barely breathing, watching the jungle. The heavy gravity made his legs ache from bracing against the trunk, but he didn't move. Patience was its own kind of strength. Then, as the sun started to set on the first day, something changed. The jungle sounds stopped. Doyen's hand moved slowly to his energy blade. He didn't draw it, just rested his fingers on the hilt. His eyes scanned the clearing below, looking for movement. There, a shadow that didn't match the trees. Something big, moving with impossible silence for its size. The Ripper beast emerged from the jungle like a nightmare made flesh, 4 meters tall, walking on powerful hind legs with smaller arms tucked against its chest. Its hide was dark green, almost black, covered in overlapping plates that looked like armor. The head was all jaw, filled with teeth designed to tear through meat and bone. Its eyes glowed with reflected light, thermal sensors that let it hunt in total darkness. Doyen held perfectly still. He'd covered himself in mud before climbing, hiding his thermal signature. The breathing pores of the tree helped, their warm exhalations confusing his heat pattern. But if he moved, if he made a sound, the Ripper would spot him. The beast approached the first false camp, the one by the hot spring. It circled the area, sniffing the ground. Then it attacked with sudden, shocking violence. Claws ripped through the space where someone might have been sleeping. The emergency beacon shattered. The Ripper roared, a sound that made Doyen's bones vibrate. He watched, made mental notes. The beast led with its right side just like in the videos. The old injury on the left leg was visible now, a thick scar running up from the ankle. It moved fast, but there was a slight hitch in its gait. Not much, but it was there. The Ripper spent 5 minutes destroying the camp. Then it moved on. Doyen waited until it was gone before letting out his breath. His hands were shaking slightly. Not from fear exactly, from adrenaline. From the knowledge that he'd just been within 30 meters of something that could kill him in seconds. Day 1, hour 18, he whispered into his recorder. First contact established. Subject displays expected aggression patterns. Left leg weakness confirmed. Thermal hunting confirmed. Now let's see what it does with camp number 2. The beast found the second false camp an hour later. Doyen had moved to a different vantage point, closer this time. He watched as the Ripper approached more cautiously. It had learned that the camps might be traps. Good. Smart predators were predictable predators. Again, the violent attack. Again, nothing there. The Ripper roared its frustration. Doyen noticed something else. After destroying the second camp, the beast paused. It lifted its head, sampling the air. Its thermal vision swept the area. It was actively hunting now, not just checking potential threats. It knew something was out here, something that had set these traps. The third camp was the test. Doyen had placed it on the ridge with a clear approach from 3 sides. The Ripper could see the area from multiple angles before committing. If it was smart, it would realize the pattern. It was smart. The beast circled the third camp for 20 minutes, staying in cover. Doyen watched from 400 meters away, using the scope function on his suit's helmet display. The Ripper was learning. It suspected an ambush. Finally, it approached. But this time, it didn't attack immediately. It examined the chemical flares, sniffed them. Then it did something that made Doyen's grin wider. It looked up, scanning the trees, searching for a hidden watcher. "Oh, you clever thing," Doyen whispered. "You know someone's playing games with you." The Ripper destroyed the third camp, but without the rage of the first 2. This was methodical. It was saving energy, adapting to a new kind of prey. Night fell properly then. Kargoth Prime had 2 moons, both small, casting strange shadows through the jungle. The temperature dropped 10 degrees. Doyen climbed down from his perch and moved to a new position. He didn't dare sleep, not yet. Not until he had more information. The Ripper hunted through the night. Doyen heard it moving, that heavy tread and occasional roar. It was frustrated. Angry. Good. He waited until the beast was on the far side of his perimeter. Then he pulled out his harmonica and played 3 notes. Soft, but in that quiet jungle they carried. The Ripper's roar answered immediately. The beast came crashing through the undergrowth, charging toward the sound. Doyen had already moved, climbing quickly up another tree. He watched the beast arrive at his previous position and find nothing. "Day 1 complete," he said into his recorder. Subject responds to audio stimulus. Echolocation suspected but not confirmed. Recommendation: use sound to control beast's position. Also, I'm exhausted and terrified, but mostly exhausted. He found a relatively safe spot in the crook of a massive fungal trunk and wedged himself in. He set 3 timer alarms on his suit, each 15 minutes apart. Micro naps. Sleep for 15 minutes. Wake up. Check surroundings. Sleep again. Not real rest, but enough to keep functioning. The Ripper hunted below, and Doyen, 40 meters up in an alien tree on a death world where nothing human should survive, closed his eyes and slept in 15-minute intervals. Day 2 would be worse. He was counting on it. Dawn on Kargoth Prime came with fog. Thick banks of mist rose from the jungle floor as the temperature difference between night and day created condensation. Doyen woke from his last 15-minute sleep cycle to find himself surrounded by gray nothingness. He could barely see his own hand in front of his face. Perfect. He climbed down carefully, testing each handhold. The fungal trunk was slick with moisture. One slip would send him falling 40 meters into a jungle full of things that would happily eat whatever landed. The heavy gravity made every movement exhausting. His muscles ached from sleeping wedged in a tree. His throat was dry despite the humid air. Day 2. 48 hours remaining. The Ripper would be tired too. It had hunted all night and found nothing. Frustration would make it careless, or more dangerous. Doyen wasn't sure which he preferred. He moved through the fog like a ghost, using it as cover. His goal today wasn't to hide. It was to prepare. He'd spent day 1 learning the beast's behavior. Day 2 was for turning this jungle into a weapon. The canyon was 2 kilometers east. Doyen had marked it on his map during his first survey. A deep ravine with steep sides carved by ancient water flow. Now it was dry, 50 meters deep with a narrow floor. More importantly, it had good sight lines and limited entry points. This was his battlefield. He started with the vines. The jungle had dozens of species, some as thick as his arm. He tested their strength, pulling hard until he found ones that held his weight even in the heavy gravity. He cut lengths with his energy blade, collecting them in bundles. His arms burned from the effort. Everything weighed so much more here. At the academy, Minji watched the video feed with confusion. What's he doing? That's not hunting. That's gardening? Instructor Taiyang leaned forward. No, he's engineering. Watch. Doyen worked for 3 hours straight. He strung vines across the canyon at varying heights, creating a web of trip lines. Some were obvious, designed to be seen and avoided. Others he hid under leaves and dirt, real traps that would catch feet or trip running prey. Then he found the plants. He'd read about them in the ecological surveys. Carnivorous vegetation that produced paralytic sap. The sap wouldn't kill the Ripper, but it might slow it down. He collected the sap carefully in his waterproof bags, using gloves to avoid contact with his skin. His suit would protect him, but no point taking chances. He painted his energy blade with the sap, coated several rocks with it, set up small pools of the stuff in strategic locations where the Ripper might step. Day 2, hour 6, he spoke into his recorder. His voice was rough from dehydration. Battlefield preparation at 60%. Subject has not reappeared. Either it's resting or it's hunting more efficiently. Either way, I need to finish this before nightfall. The fuel cells came next. Every combat suit had backup power cells, meant for emergency situations. Doyen pulled his spares and started modifying them. He wasn't an engineer, not really, but he'd paid attention in academy classes. Fuel cells contained compressed energy. Puncture them wrong and they release that energy very quickly. Explosives, crude but effective. He placed them at key points along the canyon. Not to kill the Ripper directly. The beast's armor could probably survive a fuel cell explosion, but explosions created noise, light, confusion. They controlled movement, made the beast go where Doyen wanted it to go. The chemical flares went up next. He lined them along the canyon rim, ready to be ignited. They would create a wall of light and smoke. The Ripper hunted by thermal signature, but overwhelming its senses might buy precious seconds. By midday, he'd turned the canyon into a maze. Multiple paths in, but all of them lined with traps. The floor was covered in his vine network. The walls had handholds he'd carved or enhanced, giving him climbing routes, but nothing big enough for the Ripper to use. He was building a dance floor. Now he just needed to convince his partner to dance. Doyen climbed to the highest point on the canyon rim and ate a ration bar. It tasted like cardboard mixed with protein paste. He washed it down with water that tasted faintly of the purification chemicals. Below him his battlefield waited. I'm either very smart or very stupid, he said to himself. Probably both. A sound made him freeze. Footsteps, heavy, deliberate. The Ripper was coming. He'd been making noise all morning, cutting vines and moving rocks. He'd wanted to be heard. Wanted the beast to investigate. But now that it was actually happening, his heart hammered against his ribs. Doyen slid down from his perch and moved to a prepared position, a small cave in the canyon wall 30 meters up. He'd cleared it earlier, made sure nothing was living inside. Now he wedged himself in, hidden by an overhang with a perfect view of the canyon floor. The Ripper emerged from the jungle slowly. It had learned caution. Its head swung back and forth, thermal vision scanning. It saw the tripwires, the obvious ones, saw the disturbed earth. The beast stopped at the canyon entrance and roared. Doyen felt that sound in his chest. The Ripper was calling him out. Challenging him to fight, he stayed silent, waiting. The beast took a step into the canyon, then another. It moved with care now, avoiding the obvious traps. Its intelligence was clear. This wasn't a mindless predator. This was an apex hunter that had survived 7 years by being smart and strong in equal measure. It reached the center of the canyon floor, stopped, looked. Round Doyen realized his mistake. A second too late. The Ripper wasn't looking for him. It was examining the battlefield, learning the terrain, understanding the trap before committing to it. The beast turned and walked back out of the canyon. No, 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 Doyen whispered. All that work, all that preparation, and the Ripper was smart enough to recognize a killing ground when it saw one. He had to draw it back, had to make it angry enough to charge in despite the danger. Doyen pulled out his harmonica. He thought about what sound would enrage a predator most. Not fear, not challenge. Something else. He played a jaunty tune, a folk song from Earth about a hunter who caught nothing all day. It was cheerful and mocking in equal measure. The effect was immediate. The Ripper spun around with a roar that echoed off the canyon walls. Its thermal vision locked onto his position. The beast charged. "Come on then," Doyen shouted. "Let's dance!" The Ripper hit the first tripwire at full speed. It tore through like it wasn't there. The second wire was thicker, reinforced. It caught the beast's left leg, the injured one. The Ripper stumbled but didn't fall. Doyen triggered the first fuel cell. The explosion went off 20 meters to the beast's right. Fire and noise. The Ripper roared and veered left, directly into a pool of paralytic sap. Its foot came down in the toxic liquid, not enough to stop it, just enough to slow it. The beast charged up the canyon wall, climbing with frightening speed despite the injury and the sap. It was coming straight for Doyen's position. He waited until it was 10 meters away. Then he dropped from the cave and grabbed a vine. The pre-cut length swung him across the canyon like a pendulum. Behind him, the Ripper crashed into the cave mouth, finding it empty. Doyen landed badly on the far side. The heavy gravity turned his stumble into a fall. He rolled, came up running. His energy blade was in his hand now, coated in paralytic. The Ripper jumped. It launched itself across the 30-meter gap with power that shouldn't have been possible. Doyen dove sideways. The beast landed where he'd been standing, its claws tearing gouges in the rock. They were face to face now. 4 meters of armored predator versus one human who weighed too much and couldn't breathe right in this thick air. Doyen grinned. Having fun yet? He triggered 3 fuel cells at once. The explosions went off in sequence, creating a wall of fire between them. The Ripper roared in rage. Doyen ran, not away from the beast, toward it. He went through the fire, suit protecting him from the worst of it, and slid under the Ripper's reaching claws. His blade lashed out, catching the old injury on the left leg. The paralytic sap sank into the wound. Not deep, but enough. The Ripper's leg spasmed. It turned slower now. Doyen was already moving, climbing up a vine network he'd prepared. The beast followed, but its coordination was failing. The leg injury, the sap in its system, the confusion of the explosions all adding up. "Day 2, hour 8! Doyen gasped into his recorder as he climbed. "Subject is very, very angry. Plan is working, I think. Hard to tell when you're being chased by a nightmare." The Ripper tore through the vine network. Doyen had expected this. He'd built redundancies, backup routes. Every time the beast destroyed one path, he was already on another. They went up the canyon wall. 20 meters. 30. The Ripper was relentless, driven by rage and hunting instinct. But Doyen had spent all morning preparing this climb. He knew every handhold, every secure point. At the canyon rim, Doyen ignited the chemical flares. Bright light flooded the area. The Ripper's thermal vision, so effective in normal conditions, was overwhelmed. It roared, thrashing blindly. Doyen dropped back down into the canyon. The beast followed, unable to see clearly but tracking by sound now. It hit the ground hard, and Doyen triggered the last of his fuel cells. The explosion wasn't designed to hurt the beast. It was designed to drop them both. The canyon floor was rigged. Doyen had spent 2 hours undermining a section with his blade, weakening it. The explosion was just the trigger. The floor collapsed. Doyen and the Ripper fell together into darkness. Back at the academy, alarms blared. Doyen's life signs spiked. His camera feed showed nothing but dust and falling rocks.
No, Minji whispered.
No, come on, you idiot. Don't die like this. Instructor Heejin gripped the edge of the console. Her knuckles were white. The video feed was dead. Audio was static. The only sign Doyen was alive was the faint pulse of his vital signs, weak but present. They'd fallen into the volcanic caverns beneath the canyon, where the real danger waited, where Doyen had planned to go all along.